My name is Bridget, and at 34, I never imagined I'd be a widow. Just 3 months ago, I lost my husband of 11 years, Adam, to a sudden aneurysm. Only days after his funeral, I forced myself to attend my nephew Lucas's first birthday party. That's where my sister Cassandra made a shocking announcement. Lucas was actually Adam's son. She even produced a will, claiming half of my $800,000 home. What she didn't realize was why I could barely keep from laughing. If family drama feels all too familiar to you, go ahead and like and subscribe. You'll want to hear how I dealt with what came next. Adam and I met 12 years ago at a charity auction for children with cancer. I was volunteering, helping arrange the silent auction items. When he outbid everyone for a painting I'd admired all evening, a watercolor of the Boston skyline at sunset, in vivid orange and purple tones. After winning, he walked straight over and handed it to me. "I noticed you watching this all night," he said, his blue eyes crinkling with a warm smile. "It belongs with you." That was Adam, thoughtful, observant, generous to a fault. We went on our first date the next night, and it felt like we'd known each other forever. Adam was a corporate attorney, brilliant, yet humble, the kind of person who remembered servers' names and asked genuine questions about their lives. 8 months later, he proposed by the harbor, the real skyline mirroring the painting that brought us together. After our first anniversary, we bought a Victorian home in Beacon Hill. It was $800,000, pushing our budget, but Adam had just made partner at his firm, and my interior design career was growing. The house needed work, but it had high ceilings, solid bones, and a small garden where I pictured our future children playing. Those children never came, not for lack of trying. We went through years of tracking cycles, doctor visits, and procedures for rounds of IVF that drained our savings and energy. I'll never forget our last failed attempt, the silent car ride home. Adam's hand reaching for mine, both of us knowing it was the end of that chapter. "We can still have a beautiful life," he told me that night on our porch swing. "You and me, that's enough." And he meant it. We rebuilt our dreams. We traveled, focused on our work, and renovated the house room by room until it became my dream home. Adam cheered me on when I launched my own interior design firm. Years younger, and always the family's wild child, was often on the edges of our life. While I studied design and built my career, she bounced between jobs and relationships. Our parents worried about her constantly, making excuses and covering her financial mistakes. We'd had a complicated relationship since childhood. She was stunning and effortlessly charming, but she often treated life like a competition. When I started dating Adam, she suddenly became interested in law students. When we bought our house, she complained about her apartment for months, angling for help from our parents. Adam always reminded me, "She's your only sister. Family matters." 2 years ago, Cassandra began dating Tyler, a tattooed bartender with a motorcycle our parents disapproved of. Their relationship was turbulent, loud breakups, followed by intense reconciliations. Then came her Thanksgiving pregnancy announcement the year before Adam died, that it was a surprise. She'd never wanted kids, and had even criticized my desire for them. Yet, there she was, tearfully proclaiming the miracle of life. It stung, after all our failed attempts. But I buried my jealousy and resolved to be the best aunt I could. Lucas was born healthy at 8 pounds 4 ounces. I brought flowers and a handmade blanket I'd been knitting for months. From the start, Cassandra seemed overwhelmed, often calling me in tears about colic or exhaustion. I helped as much as I could, sometimes watching Lucas overnight so she could rest. Adam was less involved. At the time, I assumed it was due to our struggles with infertility that bonding with someone else's baby might be painful. He was always polite when Cassandra brought Lucas over, but kept his distance. Then came that terrible Tuesday. Adam complained of a headache before work. I suggested he stay home, but he insisted it was just a migraine. He had an important client meeting. He kissed me goodbye. "I'll call after." That call never came. Instead, the hospital called. By the time I arrived, he was gonna brain aneurysm. Nothing could have been done. He was just 3-6. The next days blurred into arrangements and grief. Cassandra was strangely absent, texting excuses about Lucas being sick or not having a babysitter. She appeared briefly at the funeral, then left. 1 week after we buried Adam, Lucas's first birthday arrived. The last thing I wanted was a children's party, but my mother reminded me, Adam always said family comes first. So I drove to Cassandra's small rental in a rougher neighborhood. I carried a wrapped gift, my eyes shadowed from sleepless nights spent staring at Adam's empty side of the bed. Inside, the house was decorated with blue balloons and streamers. Happy first birthday stretched across the wall. Strangers in the kitchen whispered and went silent when I passed. My parents sat stiffly at a picnic table outside, looking uncomfortable. After some awkward mingling, Cassandra came out with Lucas, dressed up and beaming. She placed him in his high chair and, with unusual energy, called for everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Lucas's special day," she began. "This past year has been full of surprises and challenges. As many of you know," her hand rested on Lucas's head, a gesture I could no longer ignore, especially after recent events. A chill shot down my spine. Something felt undeniably wrong. "Lucas isn't Tyler's son," she declared, locking eyes with me across the yard. "He's Adam's." The world seemed to freeze. Gasps rippled around us. I felt my father stiffen beside me, but all background noise faded under the rush in my ears. "Bridget's husband and I had a brief affair 2 years ago," Cassandra continued, her voice calm and rehearsed. "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. We never meant to hurt anyone, but things like this happened." I stood there, frozen, struggling to process the claim. My own sister was saying she had slept with my husband, that her son, the nephew I had loved as my own, was actually Adam's child. It was so absurd, I almost laughed. Cassandra wasn't done. She reached into her purse, pulling out a folded sheet of paper. "Adam knew the truth about Lucas. Before he died, he updated his will," she said, holding it up. "He wanted his son cared for. This will states that half the house Adam and Bridget owned should go to Lucas as his biological child." Every gaze shifted to me, some filled with pity, others with uneasy curiosity. My parents looked shocked. My father as if unsure whether to intervene. Then, to my own surprise, a smile tugged at my lips. Not a joyful smile, but the kind born from hearing something so outrageously false, it almost became comical. I pressed my lips together, trying to contain a laugh. "Oh, I see," I said evenly, taking a sip of water to steady myself. "May I see this will, Cassandra?" Her confident demeanor faltered, but she handed it over. I scanned the typed page, Adam's supposed signature at the bottom. Immediately, I noticed inconsistencies. The legal phrasing was wrong. Nothing like the official documents Adam had brought home, and the signature, while similar, was clearly forged. The connection between the A and D was off, the final flourish exaggerated. I folded it and returned it. "Thank you for sharing this. I think I'll go now." "That's it?" she asked, baffled. "Not right now," I replied calmly, gathering my purse. "This is Lucas's day. We'll discuss it privately later." I said goodbye to my stunned parents and walked to my car. Behind me, the murmurs swelled. The party atmosphere was gone. Inside my car, I finally let the laughter with tears, grief, anger, and disbelief at my sister's audacity, because there was something Cassandra didn't know, something Adam and I had kept private that made her claim impossible. It began 3 years ago, long before Lucas was conceived. We had invited Cassandra over to celebrate her new job at a marketing firm, her longest position yet. Adam made his famous lasagna, and we opened a good bottle of wine. Halfway through dinner, I stepped away to take a client call about a design emergency. The conversation lasted nearly 20 minutes. When I returned, Adam looked tense, and Cassandra sat noticeably closer to him, her hand resting on his arm. I brushed it off. She had always been affectionate, and the wine had been flowing, but that night, Adam told me she had made a pass at him, suggesting he deserved someone who could truly appreciate him. He had rebuffed her, and she laughed it off as a joke, hurt, but not entirely surprised. Cassandra often pushed boundaries. We agreed to let it go. It didn't stop there. Over the next months, she found excuses to touch him when I wasn't looking, sent borderline flirtatious texts, and once appeared uninvited at his office. Adam always told me immediately, setting firm boundaries. When we told my parents, they dismissed it as misunderstanding. My mother even suggested Adam might be flattered and exaggerating, so we quietly created distance-avoiding events with her, never being alone with her, and eventually blocking her number after a suggestive late-night message. Then came Adam's health issue. Persistent pain led to a diagnosis, varicose, requiring surgery. During the procedure, the doctor recommended a vasectomy due to the severity and risk of recurrence. After much discussion, we agreed. The surgery happened 2 years before Lucas was conceived. We told no one, not even our parents, after years of invasive questions about our childless status. That is, Adam recovered. He warned me, Cassandra isn't done. She might try something drastic one day. I laughed it off, but he took it seriously. The next week, we met with our attorney, James Wilson. Adam detailed her behavior and his surgery. James advised keeping thorough documentation, records, messages, and legal updates. Adam updated his will officially, leaving everything to me. We stored the originals in a bank safety deposit box, with James holding copies. Adam joked it was our disaster prep kit. The morning after Lucas's birthday party, I went straight to the bank. Inside the box was exactly what I needed. Adam's notarized will, medical records proving the vasectomy, a journal detailing every incident with Cassandra, printed texts, and a letter from James confirming the will's authenticity. At the bottom was a sealed envelope in Adam's handwriting. My dearest Bridget, it read, if you're reading this, something's happened. I hope this is many years from now, when Cassandra's antics are just a memory. But if not, and she's tried to hurt you, use these documents to protect yourself. I know your loyalty to family, but you deserve protection from those who take advantage of your heart. I love you beyond words. Tears streamed as I read. Adam hadn't predicted this exact scenario, but he had prepared for it. I returned most documents to the box, keeping the will, medical proof, and select journal entries. Then, I called James Wilson. It was time to act. I had only visited the office a few times with Adam, but the receptionist recognized me immediately. Her expression softened with sympathy. Mrs. Preston, she said, standing to greet me. Mr. Wilson is expecting you. My condolences for your loss. James, in his 60s with silver hair and reading glasses perched low on his nose, had been Adam's mentor when he first joined the firm. They had remained close friends even after Adam moved to another practice. He stood as I entered, coming around his desk for a brief embrace. Bridget, he said, motioning for me to sit. I was deeply saddened to hear about Adam. He was one of the good ones. He was, I replied, my voice catching. And it turns out he was also right about preparing for the worst with my sister. I told him about what had happened at the birthday party, and showed him the forged will Cassandra had presented. James studied it, his concern growing. This is a poor forgery, he said. The language is wrong, and while the signature looks similar, it would never hold up under expert review. The fact that she created this at all is very troubling. I then showed him the safety deposit box documents, medical records confirming Adam's vasectomy, the real will, and Adam's journal documenting Cassandra's past behavior. Adam was always thorough, James said after reviewing them. These medical records alone prove her claim about Lucas's paternity is false. The vasectomy was done 2 years before Lucas was conceived, but it's biologically impossible for Adam to be the father. What should I do? I asked. I don't want to humiliate her, but I can't let her take half of our home based on a lie. James leaned back. First, we need more information. I recommend hiring a private investigator to look into Cassandra's situation. People rarely commit fraud of this kind without financial pressure. He suggested Frank Delaney, a former police detective who often worked with the firm. I agreed, and James called him right away. Frank arrived an hour later, a stocky man with a Boston accent and direct manner. He took notes as I explained everything, asking questions about Cassandra's relationships, work, and finances. I realized I knew little about her current life. Since Lucas's birth, we had grown apart, and my efforts to be an involved aunt were often dismissed. I'll need a few days, Frank said. I'll focus on her financial situation and the child's actual father. What can you tell me about him? I shared what I knew about Tyler, the bartender she had been dating when she became pregnant. I'd met him a few times. He never seemed interested in family events. As far as I knew, they were still together, though she rarely mentioned him. I noted he wasn't at the party, which seemed odd. That's a good starting point, Frank said. I'll be in touch. 3 days later, Frank called for a meeting at James's office. When I arrived, they were reviewing documents spread across the table. Mrs. Preston, Frank began, I've found concerning information about your sister. Cassandra was in severe financial trouble over $75,000 in debt from credit cards, personal loans, and medical bills for Lucas's heart surgery after birth. Her credit was poor, and she'd been denied 3 more loans in the past month. She was also facing eviction. owing for months of rent. As for Tyler, Frank continued, he left shortly after Lucas was born, moving to Seattle with a new girlfriend. He pays minimal child support, about $200 a month, and even that inconsistently. Frank showed me printed text messages between Cassandra and her friend Jenna, the woman I'd seen at the party. In them, Cassandra wrote, "Adam's death is terrible, but maybe it's finally my chance to get what I deserve. That house is worth at least $800,000 now. If I play this right, I'll have a nice nest egg for Lucas and me. The will is almost ready. My friend Dave used Photoshop to copy Adam's signature from an auction item. Looks legit. Bridget's always been the golden child. Time for me to get my share." But reading her calculated words made me feel sick. This wasn't just desperation, it was premeditated fraud, taking advantage of my grief. "There's more," Frank added. Tyler had a history of domestic violence from a previous relationship and a current warrant for unpaid child support for another child. He's not someone you'd want around your nephew. I sat in silence, processing the fact that my sister was willing to destroy Adam's name and our marriage to solve her financial issues, while putting Lucas in a risky situation. "What do I do with all this?" I asked. "I can't just expose it all publicly. Lucas is innocent." James removed his glasses. "You have options. We could file charges for attempted fraud and forgery serious enough for possible jail time, or we could handle it privately, confront her, get her to retract her claim, and find an arrangement that protects you and the child." I left with a heavy heart and a folder of evidence. That evening, I called my therapist, Dr. Laurel Chen, and booked an emergency session. Intercom plant-filled office. I told her everything. "I'm so angry I can barely think," I admitted, "but Lucas is just a baby. None of this is his fault. And Cassandra is still my sister." Dr. Chen listened carefully, asking questions about our history. "It sounds like this pattern of competition and manipulation has been there since childhood," she observed. "This is an escalation, not something new." "What would you do?" I asked. "I can't decide for you," she said gently. "But compassion does not mean allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. It is possible to be kind while setting firm boundaries and clear consequences." After much thought, I decided on my next step. I would confront Cassandra privately, present all the evidence, and give her a choice: either face possible legal consequences for fraud, or agree to a compromise that would provide for Lucas while holding her accountable. The next morning, with renewed determination, I called Cassandra. "We need to talk about the will," I told her when she answered. "Can you come to my house tomorrow afternoon? Just Lucas." "I knew you'd come around," she replied, her tone smug. "I'll be there at 2. I spent the morning organizing my documents in order and setting up recording devices. Following James's advice, he reminded me that Massachusetts is a two-party consent state, meaning I couldn't record her secretly. Instead, I could request her permission, framing it as a way for both of us to have a record of any agreement reached. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I took a steadying breath before opening the door. Cassandra stood there in a new outfit, looking polished and self-assured. "Come in," I said, leading her to the living room, where 2 chairs faced each other across a coffee table. On the table sat a recorder, glasses of water, and a folder of documents. "I hope you don't mind if we record our conversation," I said. "It seems wise given the legal nature of what we're discussing." Cassandra hesitated briefly before nodding. "Sure, whatever makes you comfortable. I think this will be straightforward. The will is clear." I turned on the recorder, stating the date and time, and confirming her consent to record. Then I sat back and looked at her. "Before we talk about the will, I want to hear your account of what happened between you and Adam." Cassandra launched into a well-rehearsed story about an alleged affair 2 years earlier. She claimed that during a difficult time in my marriage, though in reality, there was no such period, she and Adam met several times at a downtown hotel. According to her, Adam confided in her about his unhappiness, and Lucas was conceived during these meetings. "He always meant to tell you," she added with practiced sincerity. "But when Lucas was born with a heart condition, he didn't want to cause more stress. He promised to provide for his son." I listened quietly, noting inconsistencies in her story and details that contradicted Adam's schedule at that time. When she finished, I began asking questions. "Which hotel did you meet at?" "The Mandarin Oriental," she replied quickly. "And what room number?" she faltered. "It was on a high floor." "I don't remember exactly. What days of the week?" Tuesdays, sometimes Thursdays. I pressed further with specific questions: what Adam ordered from room service, which side of the bed he preferred, whether he showered before or after. These were details only someone truly intimate with him would know. Her answers grew vague and contradictory. "Why does this matter?" she snapped. "The point is that Lucas is Adam's son, and the will proves Adam wanted to provide for him." "Actually," I said calmly, opening my folder, "both of those claims are false." I placed Adam's medical records on the table. 2 years before Lucas's conception, Adam had undergone a vasectomy after surgery for varicocele. The procedure was completely successful, confirmed by follow-up tests. It was medically impossible for him to father a child afterward. Cassandra's face lost color. She picked up the records with trembling hands. "These could be fake," she said weakly. "They're not," I replied. "Adam's doctor is prepared to testify to their authenticity." And that's just the beginning. Next, I produced Adam's real will, properly notarized and filed with a court prepared by James Wilson and witnessed by 2 of his colleagues. It left everything to me, with no mention of Lucas. Cassandra's confidence faltered, but she tried to recover. "He must have changed it later. The will I have is more recent." "The will you have," I said evenly, "is a forgery. A poor one. James has already identified multiple legal errors in the wording, and the signature is clearly fake. Creating a fraudulent will is a felony in Massachusetts, punishable by up to 5 years in prison." I continued presenting evidence: Adam's journal documenting her inappropriate advances, text messages between her and Jenna discussing the plan, and Frank's investigation report detailing her financial troubles, eviction notice, and Tyler's abandonment. "We know everything," I said. "The question is, what happens next?" She sat in silence before breaking into genuine, body-shaking sobs. "I didn't know what else to do," she said between gasps. "I'm going to be homeless. Lucas and I will be out on the street in 2 weeks. Tyler left us with nothing. The medical bills keep coming. I thought if I could just get some money from the house." "So you decided to ruin Adam's reputation," I interrupted, my voice firm. "To tell everyone he cheated on me, to forge legal documents." "I was desperate," she shouted, anger flaring. "You have everything: this big house, a successful business, respect. I have a baby with a heart condition, $75,000 in debt, and an eviction notice. Try making good choices in that situation." Her outburst hung in the air. For the first time, the raw honesty of her words, stripped of manipulation, reached me. Not forgiveness, but perhaps a trace of understanding. "Lucas is Tyler's son, isn't he?" I asked softly. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Yes. Adam never touched me. I tried with him years ago, but he always shut me down. He was annoyingly loyal to you and the will. My friend Dave helped me make it. He does graphic design and thought forging a signature would be easy. I only meant to use it to pressure you for money. I didn't think you'd investigate so thoroughly." I turned off the recorder and considered my next move. Cassandra sat nervously, waiting for my response. "I could press charges," I said. "At last, what you did was illegal and cruel and deliberate." She nodded, defeated. "I know, but that would hurt Lucas," I continued. "And despite everything, he's my nephew. I love him." I leaned forward, ensuring she met my eyes. "Here's what's going to happen. You'll tell everyone the truth, that you lied about the affair, that Lucas isn't Adam's son, and that you forged the will. You'll apologize publicly to me and to Adam's memory." "And then what?" she asked quietly. "We'll still be evicted." "I'm not finished," I said. "In exchange for your full confession and a legal agreement never to attempt anything like this again, I'll help you and Lucas, not by giving you half my house, but by setting up a trust fund for Lucas's education and medical needs, and helping you find stable housing." Her eyes widened. "Why would you do that after what I did?" "Not for you," I said honestly, "for Lucas, and because Adam would want me to help his nephew, even if his mother tried to damage his reputation. There will be conditions," I continued. "You'll attend therapy and financial counseling, maintain stable employment, and allow me to be part of Lucas's life, to ensure he's cared for. If you break any of these terms, the support ends immediately." Cassandra was silent for a long moment. "I don't deserve your help," she said at last. Double quotes, "No, you don't," I agreed. "But Lucas deserves a stable home and medical care, and I deserve to protect my husband's memory. This arrangement gives us both what we need." After discussing the details, Cassandra accepted my terms. We'd meet with James the next day to formalize the agreement, and she'd confess at a family dinner the following weekend. At the door, she paused. I really am sorry, Bridget. I've been jealous of you my whole life. Everything always seemed easy for you. Nothing about my life has been easy, I replied. You just never looked past the surface. Maybe it's time you start. The family dinner was tense from the beginning. My parents arrived early, my mother carrying her lasagna as a peace offering. I don't know what this is about, she said, setting it down, but Cassandra's been calling us in tears, saying you're forcing her to attend some family meeting. Wait, until everyone's here, I said, pouring her wine. This needs to be addressed all at once. By 7, everyone was at the table. My parents, Cassandra, without Lucas, and me. James had advised me to record the conversation. The small recorder sat in the center. Thank you all for coming, I began. Cassandra has something important to share. She looked pale and nervous, her usual confidence gone. I lied about Lucas being Adam's son, she admitted. Adam and I never had an affair. Lucas is Tyler's child. And I forged the will I showed at the party. My parents stared in shock. But why? My father demanded. Do you know what that did to your sister and Adam's reputation? Cassandra explained. Her debts, Tyler's abandonment, and the looming eviction. My mother's expression softened. Oh honey, why didn't you just come to us for help? Would you have given me $400,000? She asked flatly. That's what I'd have gotten if my plan worked, half Bridget's house. Of course not, my father said. But we could have helped with rent temporarily. Instead, you tried to defraud your sister while she was grieving. I know it was wrong, Cassandra admitted. Bridget's made that clear. She has enough evidence to press charges. My mother turned to me. You wouldn't do that to your own sister, would you? I could, I said firmly. This wasn't just immoral, it was illegal. Forgery and fraud are felonies. But she's family, my mother insisted. And she has Lucas to think about. I'm family too, I replied, my voice rising. Your daughter, the one who just lost her husband and had to defend his memory from lies. Where was your concern for me? My father shifted uncomfortably. Of course we care about you. But Cassandra has always needed more help. And whose fault is that? I asked. You've bailed her out her whole life. Maybe if she'd faced consequences, she wouldn't have committed crimes. That's hardly fair, my mother protested. No, Mom, Cassandra said quietly. Bridget's right. You've always made excuses for me. It didn't help. It made me believe I could do anything without consequences. My parents were stunned. For once, Cassandra was accepting responsibility. So what happens now? My father asked. Is she going to jail? No, I said. Not if she meets the conditions we agreed on. The trust fund for Lucas, therapy, financial counseling, and steady employment. That's generous, my father said. It's more than generous. Cassandra admitted, it's more than I deserve. Then, this is settled, my mother said brightly. Cassandra's apologized. Bridget's helping Lucas, and we can move on. It's not that simple, I said. Trust is broken. Healing will take time. And there must be boundaries. What kind of boundaries? She asked. No more enabling Cassandra's behavior. Support that fosters independence only. And understand my relationship with her won't be the same, at least not for a long time. But we're family, my mother said, distressed. Being family doesn't mean tolerating abuse, I said gently. Cassandra used my grief to manipulate me. That has consequences, even in families. Dinner ended quietly. My father hugged me. I'm proud of you, Bridget. Adam would be too. Cassandra left last. I really am sorry, she said again. Not just for the lies, but for years of jealousy, for not being the sister you deserved. I know, I said. I hope therapy helps you understand why. Lucas deserves a healthy, honest mother. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I don't know, I answered truthfully, but I'm willing to see where this goes for Lucas's sake, and maybe someday for ours too. A year after Adam's death, I stood in the garden as daffodils he'd planted bloomed in bright yellow. So much had changed. The trust fund was helping Lucas, whose heart condition was improving. Cassandra had kept her word, therapy, steady work, and responsible parenting. Our relationship was polite but distant, built on cooperation for Lucas's benefit. My parents eventually respected the new boundaries. The grief group I'd joined became a lifeline. 3 months after confronting Cassandra, I started the Adam Preston Foundation for Legal Education, funding scholarships for underprivileged students. It gave me purpose, keeping Adam's legacy alive. Friends rallied around me. Adam's law partners checked in often. My college roommate visited monthly. And then there was Michael, a kind ethics professor I met at a fundraiser. We were taking things slow, both hopeful. In the garden that morning, I thought of Adam's lessons about boundaries, documentation, and resilience. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting or accepting harmful behavior. Family could require protection from within. The daffodils swayed, a reminder that grief has seasons, each with challenges and unexpected beauty. I wasn't the same person as before. I was stronger, more cautious, and more authentic. But, sometimes, painful betrayals force us to discover strength we didn't know we had. You couldn't have known what would happen after you were gone, I said, softly to Adam's memory, but you prepared me to face it. Your love protects me still. Grief never disappears, but I'd learned to carry it alongside hope. Adam had given me that gift, showing that love endures beyond loss, and that preparation and honesty are acts of care. If I could tell anyone facing betrayal within their family one thing, it's this: protect yourself with boundaries and documentation. Those who truly love you will respect them. Those who don't were never safe for you. Have you had to set hard boundaries with family? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Your support helps me keep sharing these important lessons.